is our third CSA class for the year, and this one's extra special because we have Paul Guglielmo presenting. I'm not as good as you. Anyway, as many of you know, Paul has his own sauce line local to the area. It's phenomenal. So we thought we would steal him to learn some of his tricks of the trade. If you don't know me, I'm Carolyn Wickham. I'm Bill and Debbie's daughter-in-law. And with that, I'll turn it over.
All right. Excellent. I'm happy to be stolen. I know I'm stolen from you guys. Whenever you see one Wegmans bag for Roma tomatoes, does anyone else think 1.5? Don't admit it. 2 maybe. How's everyone doing? Good. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. My name's Paulie. So I have 2 jobs, right? I work in radio, the Brother Lee Show. Also, usually that's when half the people exit. That's nice so far. Also Kiss 106.7, also Wham 1180. And I do a food show on Wham 1180. And Mr. Wickham actually was a guest a few months ago, right? Sort of at the beginning of this year's CSA.
Nobody knows who Mr. Wickham is.
No.
Only you and our daughter-in-law call Bill Mr.
Behind
Wickham.
the scenes, right? There's this mysterious man behind the scenes who's like water and stuff in the morning, and then we all come in the afternoon and bake. But anyway, I know Jackie heard the interview, so that's good. That's great. And then also, of course, the pasta sauce. Sorry. And we make a bunch of different types of pastas of sauce. I get my tomatoes from my home sauce from the CSA from here. My canned tomatoes, we're actually going to be using, when we get to making the sauce, tomatoes that I canned from here. These are tomatoes that were...
So, everybody know, Paulie is a member of the CSA.
Yes.
He's not just going in and helping himself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. I love it. My wife is from Fairport. I'm from Northeast Ohio originally, but my wife's from Fairport. I married a Rochester girl. I'm here to stay. And it was a non-negotiable when we got married. She was just like, her mom had done it for a year or two, and then, it was a non-negotiable. We were going to do this CSA thing, and I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't know what CSA stood for. Does anyone here not know what CSA stands for? Well, it's okay. Everybody knows. Really?
They're all members.
That's true, I know it. I was a member for like a year before I had anything. One day I think Weeze asked me on the air what CSA stands for, and I did that moment where I was to farm? No, there's no F. Anyway, all right. So we're gonna make some sauce today. I'll give you a little history on the sauce real quick. This is sort of our original flavor. This is our marinara sauce. Okay, well, you want to be quiet and awkward? Just Hey, how's it going?
Great.
So this is our marinara. This is our original flavor. This is actually the stuff that I used to go over to my grandpa's house for every single Sunday when I was young. I think people can usually relate to a story like that, right? Everyone has family recipes maybe that were passed down, and maybe you had a special day where family got together. That was, for us, it was Sundays, and it was sauce. It was stereotypical American Italian. But I say American Italian for a reason because it was very American Italian, right? Minchia was pronounced Minghia, for example. But the pasta sauce, the actual sauce we made, when you think of sauce, you think of Italian, right? Of course. This sauce is actually an American pasta sauce, which is kind of different, and I'll explain what I mean. So the sauce was made by my great-grandmother, who I never met, but my grandpa's mom. And the story is, she was from Italy, but when she got here, she took whatever recipe she knew from her mom back in Italy, and she had to adapt it for the United States. And it was the Great Depression time. And so she had to create a sauce based on what she could actually grow. So the cool thing about this sauce, and when the Wickhams asked me to do this, is that almost everything in this sauce is something that grows in this climate at some point during the year. Which is awesome about that. But it's not Italian influence. So for example, before I start cooking, I'm going to tell you these are Roma tomatoes. These are the plum tomatoes from right here. Everyone's heard of San Marzano tomatoes, right? And San Marzano tomatoes are supposedly the best possible tomatoes you can get. But the truth is, real good San Marzano tomato, actually grown in the San Marzano region of Italy, is a great tomato. It's an amazing tomato. But the San Marzano of Italy is really far away. and actually importing real San Marzanos grown in the volcanic ash soil of San Marzano, Italy is very expensive. So you can do it, you can find them, but like doing it on a large scale would be very hard. And my great-grandmother wouldn't have had access to that. What she would have been able to do is grow awesome plum tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, just like they do here. So that's what she did. So, so that you might find that interesting. It's kind of an American size, right? Does anyone know what my grandpa's name was? I know I haven't said it, but does anybody know based on having heard it ever? No? Anybody? Do you want to take a guess? No, but Guglielmo was a good guess, I guess. My grandpa's name was Pete. That's it. That part usually doesn't get away. Alright. By the way, I'm going to do contests throughout the day, and I'm going to be giving away some sauce as we do this. All these jars here I'm going to give away. But I should probably start cooking if we're going to actually eat some sauce. So as I mentioned, all ingredients that we're going to actually use here are ingredients that you can grow at some point during the year, except for, of course, olives. But, you know, we got fancy as years went by. But we're going to do onion, we're going to do garlic, and we're not going to use very much of any of this stuff. I'm using 2 quarts of tomatoes here. If anybody actually cares about the recipe and wants to know the recipe, I will give it to you. You don't necessarily have to write it down or remember it because my cell phone number's on the jar, my cell phone number's on our website. This is Wickham will give you my cell phone number if you want. I'll walk you through the recipe. I don't want you to have to worry about writing things down and following along right now. Also, you're going to notice I'm the worst businessman in the world because I'm about to show you how to never buy this. I'm about to show you exactly how it's made. So here we go. I'm going to use just a little bit of onion, not too much onion. I'm going to use maybe this much onion.
We've got a future chef coming with her apron on.
Hi there, welcome. Yeah. I'm going to take some onion, and you guys are going to realize, you're going to be like, wow, he really chops that weird. He doesn't seem to be doing the professional chef chop. I'm not going to do any of that because modern technology, I'm going to use an immersion blender at the end. You guys know the immersion blender? Life changed when I got an immersion blender. So really, at this point, all I'm really going to do is kind of chop this stuff up. Nothing too crazy. Oh, and I'm going to turn on my pot because I'm a professional and I should have done that. I don't usually use this, but is 10 high? Is that how it works? So 5 is medium. Okay, so we'll go for it. All right. So we're just going to do some onion. That's all at this point. That's really all I'm going to do. I've made this sauce by hand a million times where I haven't maybe had an immersion blender or before I had an immersion blender, and in those cases, I actually do kind of do the whole chop thing. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. This is not like a normal class where I just talk and Q&A. We can Q&A the whole time. If you guys have questions, just consider this to be like a group participation. You can just, if you want to raise a hand, if you don't want to raise a hand, you can, If you don't want to raise a hand, you can just shout it out if I'm not paying attention or something. It's perfectly fine. What was my grandpa's name? Pete. I heard it over here. Who was that? I heard it was you, wasn't it? There you go. There you go.
Now your cell phone, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Anybody wants to?
I didn't realize that might have actually worked for me when I was thinking, I'm not saying what I'm thinking about, but that might have worked for me at one point in my life. Nothing really ever did work for me.
Where do you sell your sauce?
You can find the sauce actually at Wegmans, Tops.
And right here?
Wickham Farms.
Okay, right here.
Lots of little mom and pops in Rochester, and then in the region we're in like Whole Foods and Price Chopper and things like that. By the way, if you guys want to, this doesn't just have to be about sauce either, because I find that. If you want to talk about radio, that's fine. If you want to talk about business at all, I'm by no means am I an expert on business, but we've started a little business and here we are, so we can talk about that. One of the tricks for getting the garlic off, everybody knows if you're in a CSA, you're smart enough to know that you just kind of crush it and then this starts to come off. And same thing with this garlic. I'm going to keep it separate from the onion because we're going to put in the garlic last, but I'm not doing much more than just that with it because I'm not worried about pureeing it or anything like that.
Why do you put it in last?
I put the garlic in last because it just is so delicate. Garlic is...
You don't want it to turn bitter, right?
Right. It'll just burn very quickly. Yeah, burn very quickly. So if I put that in at the same time as everything else, I would regret it. You know, I would get I think I would overdo my garlic. Is what the real answer.
And how many cloves are you getting?
Well, obviously it depends on the size, but in this case, because these are relatively large cloves, because these are, I assume, Wickham Farms. And this is also actual fresh garlic, not like the crap you would get at Wegmans or something like that. This is actual fresh garlic. So this is you know, strong. This is good garlic. This is very good garlic. This is such good garlic that this is probably going to go in my pocket. Very good stuff. We're going to use a little, don't tell anyone else. This is the second time I've admitted to stealing. We're going to use some red pepper. I don't really, by the way, I just want you to know. I'm going to use a little red pepper. Just about like that. Same deal. Just kind of chop it enough that the pieces are manageable, but I'm not going to go too far and worry about over chopping or anything like that. Another thing about me. Our sauce is made in a couple different places. We make some of it at a place called Private Label Foods on Lyle Avenue. Private Label is actually the old ragu plant, where ragu was for years before it moved out of Russia. And some of the other stuff is made at a place called Coach Tony's Permac Enterprises in Bergen, Tennessee County. All right, I'm going to use some olive oil. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know which one you needed, EVOO or olive oil.
Ice.
Tell me why what one or the other would you use?
Do you want the real reason why I use
Yeah,
that?
is it cheaper?
No, not necessarily because it's cheaper. Because it's just what I've used for a long time.
Okay.
Like I just,
That's all I need.
you know, I see this one and I'm like, well, that's the fancy oil. I'll leave that for her at home. I'll use this for the company. That's the fancy stuff. That's the company stuff. Right? That comes out when you got company coming in. All right, I want that to be nice and hot. I can feel that's pretty hot. I just stick my hand down and I'm actually going to bring down the heat a little bit. Probably about 2. Not too familiar with this particular burner, so when you're using a new stove, you never know. If anything goes terribly wrong, we just pop open a bunch of jars of sauce. These are good.
Nice.
Seal. Nice, like that. So these tomatoes, I think I canned these, what's today, Wednesday, probably like Saturday or I think maybe Saturday or Sunday afternoon. They're from, when's the last time you had Romas? It was last Monday maybe?
Well, we had them in the CSA share and we also had them on pick
Yeah.
on Saturday. Didn't I see you Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Saturday.
I have a sink full of tomatoes right now. I'm a little behind. We'll hopefully do them tomorrow. Okay, here we go. Let's make some sauce. Onion, red pepper, green pepper. I'll throw all that in.
Did you do anything to the tomatoes before you canned them?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Did you add any seasonings or do anything to the tomatoes?
Oh, the tomatoes. The tomatoes, what I did was, for the tomatoes, I did basil, parsley, and salt. That's what I did. But I did, for the tomatoes, I did about 2 hours of just boil. And then I did about an hour with the basil, the parsley, and the salt. And then I canned it down.
How do you prep the tomatoes when you boil them, Paul?
I don't do much prep at all, to tell you the truth. A lot of people do. They put their, I dropped one in case you wonder why I'm adding more growth. A lot of people do. They take the skins off, they take the seeds out. I don't do any of that stuff. Now that's a matter of being cheap. That's my grandpa saying I'm not going to waste any tomato. You know, my grandpa didn't want to waste a bit of tomato whatsoever. My grandfather also, and listen, there's nothing wrong with beefsteak tomato. It's got plenty of uses. But if my grandfather ever caught you using beefsteak tomato and sauce, man, would he get mad at you? And I remember the day he kind of taught me, you know, what kind of tomato you use. And he said, you got to use a plum tomato. There's a lot of meat in there. And he would say, he actually did, one day he had an example for me. He had this big, like, beefsteak tomato. And he shows me, and he cuts that one in half, and then he cuts a Roma tomato in half. He takes a Roma tomato, and he holds it up like this, and you know, nothing happens. Watch this, Paul. And he pulls this one up. He does this, and water comes out. He said, that's a bull crap tomato.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So to prep your tomatoes, do you quarter them? Do you just throw them in whole? What do you do?
Okay, so, sorry, yes.
I want the
tomatoes. So
secret.
what I do is I take the stem off real quick, and then I've gotten pretty good at it. I only cut myself about once per session. But I take over a big pot, I get a good movie on, it's good Netflix time, get a good movie on, I sit over my kitchen sink, I wash, I chop a stem, and then into my big pot, in my hand I just kind of go, and then drop it right in there. That's about it. I kind of into pieces. So maybe I take a normal sized little Roma tomato, maybe do like 8 or so. Why is it that San Marzano tomatoes are better if they're actually grown in San Marzano? Like, what is it specifically about?
Maybe the soil.
Heard soil. No soil over here. This is our Sunday sauce, man. This is our meat, wine, and cheese sauce. I hope you enjoy that. There you go. You're welcome. All right. We are what's called sweating our vegetables right now. I'm about ready to be done with this, to tell you the truth. I'm going to take some tomato paste. And I'm going to actually put this in before I put the rest of the tomatoes in. And you can make your own tomato paste. I haven't done any yet this year. To make tomato paste, you basically just, so you would do what you're doing here with these tomatoes. You just keep straining and straining and straining and straining, getting rid of all of that. Getting rid of all of that liquid, like all that water. And when you can, does anyone here can tomato? A lot, probably a lot, right? You get a lot of water, you strain it all during the process, or you keep all that water? Yeah, I strain a lot.
Especially when it's, when you're boiling it, it tends to make more water.
Yeah.
It comes to the top.
All right, so I'm just put my tomato paste in here and just kind of, melt it, I guess, is kind of what I'm doing here. Does it smell good in here yet? A little bit? Okay. Now, as soon as that is melted down, a relatively significant amount, it's time for our Wickham Farms tomatoes. We throw them right on in there. Boom.
Instead of throwing away the liquid, it's got to have some kind of flavor in it. Why don't you just add more tomato paste?
You know what? Here's a good trick. You ready? And I'm going to pretend that I came up with this. I'm not going to say that I stole this from someone. So that stuff that you're straining out, save it and turn it into like a soup stock, right? Soup stock. And then also, so anyone do Parmesan cheese, but you buy a block of Parmesan cheese and you fresh grate it, as opposed to buying it already grated. Keep the rinds, and put that in there and freeze the whole thing, freeze all that stock, and then when you're ready to make a soup and you've got that, oh man, that's a good way to start a soup. You know, you obviously want to soupify it after that, but it's a good way to start a soup with that tomato water, but it's still tomato flavored water. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right, so now I'm kind of trying to show you. I know but it's basically just, it's sort of a really chunky tomato sauce. So we actually do, most of our sauces we do smooth. We have one version we do chunky. It's actually this one, which we call our chunky. But when we first started the business, we did a little bit of research. And I knew pretty early on that I wanted it to appeal to like a mainstream audience. I wanted to try and actually make it a business. And what we did was we did some sort of blind taste test with strangers, because your loved ones will always tell you what you want to hear, so you need strangers. And so we did some blind taste tests with strangers. And as far as smooth versus chunky, just out of curiosity, who likes a smooth sauce? And who likes a chunky sauce? Okay, all right, it's closer to 50-50 here, maybe a little smooth, but again, you guys, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in front of you, but you guys are sort of like a higher level, I would consider, than basically the mainstream public, just because you belong to a CSA, and you've literally come to a cooking class right now, like you're a little bit more, anyway, I keep trying not to say intelligent, you're a little bit more intelligent, in my opinion, what do I know? But anyway, I think that, sorry, gotta pay attention. Oh, smooth. Okay, so we did this taste test and we did a couple of them, and what we basically found was that some people like chunky, a lot of people like smooth, but at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that mom could serve it to her kids. And kids, 99% no chunk at all. Chunk was bad. So mom's not.
And they don't want the vegetables.
Right.
So it's smooth it out.
Yeah, so we puree all this stuff. So when we make this stuff in the factory, I'm showing you how I make it at home. We make it in a factory, a little bit different, same ingredients, a little bit different, in that we take all those veggies and actually puree them so that they blend right into the sauce. So that your child is eating red pepper and green pepper and onion and garlic, but has no idea because it's just smooth, you know? All right, so I am going to use our handy immersion blender now. Anybody completely unfamiliar with what this is? Go for it. No. This is awesome. This thing was revolutionary.
How many people have one of those?
Yeah, okay, pretty much
How many
everybody.
people don't? I don't have one. Is it life-changing?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did your family come from?
Oh, you mean all the way back? Campo Basso.
Now, where's that?
It's like the ankle.
Oh, all right.
The ankle. And I actually lived in Italy for a year myself as an exchange student. I lived on the island of Sardinia, which was awesome. E per quello io so parlare l'italiano. Quindi se volete parlare italiano, possiamo parlare. You don't understand that? No. Okay. All right, so I'm going to smooth this up. And what's happening right now, I wish you could see it, but what's happening right now is all of that just chunky, just kind of everything together. It's forming into sauce right now is what's really happening. As soon as I get this done, I'll kind of walk it around real quick and show you where we want to be at.
Is this as long as you usually cook it this quick?
Actually, I was just going to get to that part. So, no, usually I do cook it a lot longer. Now, in fairness, this has already cooked if you count the boiling the tomatoes for a few hours. But, thank you, you're awesome. I appreciate that.
She wants to think of it.
You can kind of see. It's nothing special. It's just, it looks like what a pot of sauce would look like, right? I mean, it's just that we went from all that chunk to, a smooth finish. So, one of the other things that I love to talk about when it comes to sauce is that another thing that I would consider to be sort of stereotypical would be the thought that sauce must cook all day, okay? I don't think there's anything wrong with sauce cooking all day. I think it's great. In fact, when I do cook on a Sunday, I've got about 3 hours into my canning, and then I've got about 4 hours into my actual cooking. Because what I would do, if it was Sunday right now and you were at my house, I'd be at this point at about like 8:15 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. So right now is when I'm gonna add a whole bunch of meat. I'm gonna do meatballs, which I probably made yesterday. I'm gonna do a short rib, like a beef short rib, maybe just one, depending on how many people I'm having over. But if it's just my wife and I, just one, I'm gonna drop that in there raw. And then I'm gonna take Italian sausage, and on the side, I'm gonna saute some Italian sausage. I'm actually gonna cut them in half because I want some of that fat to fall out of it. Little bit against, I guess, contemporary wisdom. You would think, don't cut it, keep it juicy. I want the fat to come out because I want the fat to end up in the sauce. So I'm going to take that sausage and I'm going to brown it, and then I'm going to put the sausage and all that fat that came out, and maybe a little oil and all that stuff is all going to end up in there. And then we're going to do some leaves. We're going to do some nice fresh spices here. Just going to kind of tear these up as I go. Now, there was already basil and parsley in this because I canned with that, but I want to add some fresh stuff right here at the end. Again, this is just a little bit different than what we do with the actual commercial version of the sauce. The commercial version of the sauce, these would have been pureed into it. But I think we're good not doing that.
How much basil and parsley do you put in your canned tomatoes when you jar them up? And
Well,
you said salt, about how much?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, you know how Italians measure, right?
Yep.
I put about that much.
Yep.
I put about a handful. I really do. I measure it by almost feel, on almost a full handful for a big sauce pot. Big one. I got a big one. I take about a handful of basil, about a handful of parsley, and about a half a handful of salt. And that's about what I use. But measurements, I don't think I've ever measured anything. I have no idea how much goes in there. Now again, speaking of the differences between cooking at home and cooking for commercial, here there are measurements, and there is a lot more. Oh, that smells good. And there is a lot more you know, there's rules and regulations and things have to be done exactly the same way every single time. So for the commercial version of the sauce, I went to my grandpa's house. He was still alive at the time. I went to my grandpa's house and I had bought a little scale, a little food scale, and he recognized the scale as something different than a food scale, which taught me a lot about his history. But he, you got that joke. Did have. Anyway, he was an entrepreneur at one point himself. But anyway, so I would have him. So I went there for 3 weeks in a row, and I said, Grandpa, I know the recipe, and I know how we do this, and I know that we just kind of throw it in. But Grandpa, I really want to measure, and I'm going to take these 3 weeks, and I'm going to kind of make an average, and that's what I'm going to do for the commercial sauce. I'm going to do the average of these 3 weeks. And I found out that like it varied so much. Like he was, like it was crazy. He wasn't even coming. I think I come a little closer, just on guessing each week, to being about the same on everything. But like he was way all over the place, and somehow it always came out tasting the same. Oh, I am going to use some oregano, but you'll notice I'm just going to use some dried oregano. The reason that I use dried oregano is because oregano is a bit of a controversial ingredient. Just out of curiosity, is there anyone here right now seeing the fact that I'm about to use oregano? Seeing the fact that I'm about to use oregano and thinking oregano doesn't belong in that sauce, what is it doing? Nobody really thinks, okay. Because I get that sometimes from little old Italian people who will occasionally tell me that oregano doesn't belong in pasta sauce. When I do like a festival, like we do Park Ave Fest or something, I mean, it's a lot of, anytime I see someone that looks like you come to my booth and try to, I always know that like,
my grandmother's like, ixnay.
Right. Oregano is typically associated with pizza sauce, but
Right.
I think, I don't know, because I never got a chance to ask her, and honestly, I never even really got the chance to ask my grandpa this, but I think that my great-grandmother used oregano because she could grow it. I think it was just because she could. It was there, it was close enough, it worked in the sauce, maybe she liked the taste, but it was there because, my grandpa used oregano. I asked my grandpa, why didn't we use oregano in the canning process, like fresh oregano? It's just a little too strong, fresh oregano. I think there's a place for it in certain recipes at certain times. But maybe for this sauce, I don't know. So, all right, so now we put basil and parsley in there. We've got a little oregano. I'm going to use just a little black table pepper.
Have you ever been to culinary school?
No, I haven't. But I do teach at a culinary center, which is kind of great. No, I have not. No, are you trying to tell me I should probably go? All right, and now the most controversial ingredient.
Sugar.
It's actually cocaine. Just realized everything. I'm sorry. I forgot this is a G show. It is sugar. And this is a very controversial sauce ingredient. Because, is anybody mad at me for using it?
Yes, I am.
Mad at me for using sugar? I haven't, and I don't blame you. People
His
get
last
very-
name is Delucia.
Yes, people get very angry when they see sugar going into the sauce. So what we think that it cuts the acidity, right? The truth is it actually does not cut the acidity. Did you know that? And the bad thing about me in this position is I can't actually explain it. There's this chef at the New York Wine and Culinary Center who kind of taught me that like it doesn't, I guess like baking soda would cut the acidity or something like that. I don't actually, the other thing about the acidity, wait, aren't you like a scientist or something? Do you know the answer?
I don't.
You know, okay, I was like, you're not like you know.
I'll pass that right back.
She's fine, yeah, but your mother-in-law loves it. Alright, anyway, so like the idea that it cuts the acidity, I don't think is true. Some people do like sweet sauce. I don't necessarily love sweet sauce. If you really backed me into a corner and said, why do you put sugar in your sauce? The truth is, my answer would be, because my grandpa did. I have a great answer. I like it, I feel incomplete without it. I'm slightly OCD and anal on it. I'm just gonna use it. Just gonna use it. I classify that as a
Look at one
You made it without the sugar and tasted it?
yeah.
It was different.
I think so. I don't know. It might just be in my head. I'm crazy. I do. I kind of have like I can convince myself of anything. It's crazy. I'm one of those people who like, I WebMD too much. I can convince myself of anything. All right. So now, as far as sauce, short and long, let me finish that thought if you don't mind. I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm sorry, I've been up since 2 a.m. All right, so this sauce At this point, it's edible. We can eat this. There's no meat or anything. This is great. As long as it's warm, we want it warm, and I think it's probably getting warm, and I'll crank it a little to get it warm. This sauce is great. We can eat this. It's going to have a real fresh taste to it. It's going to really taste like those fresh vegetables. It has not been cooking long, as you know. There's other quick sauces you can do. Does anybody ever just take some Roma tomatoes and kind of crush them up a little bit, put them in almost like a frying pan or something, and with some oil, and you go high heat, and you just kind of beat on them a little bit, and then you do some garlic and some basil and some parsley, and then you take that after about 20 minutes and put it over noodles. That's good stuff. Like, that's good. That's a nice, quick little summer sauce, right? We actually do a flavor called summer sauce. This little bit like that in the sense that we can eat this right now. But as I was telling you, if it was Sunday, I think this sauce could cook all day. I think I could put a bunch of meat in here, we could wait about 4 hours, and it would only get better. I do think it would get better. I think it's edible right now. I think that you're going to taste it, probably like it, I hope. But I think that with time and with some meat in there, that it could and would get better. Are there any vegetarians who are very upset about my thinking that it needs to be? We're all good?
You keep the lid off, or you keep it on?
Keep the lid off the whole time,
So
yeah.
you just fry it on the weekend?
Yeah, I'm very obsessed with being able to get the piece of bread that I've just torn off of the loaf in there as quick as possible. And if the lid's in the way, then I'm just an extra step. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's when the Italian chefs do it in the restaurants.
With the
The
bread.
lids are always off and the bread is ready.
Right, that's right. Okay, so I'm gonna try this first, not because I'm selfish and wanna go first, but because I wanna make sure it's not terrible.
With the lid on, it actually, there's too much moisture, so it ends up, will actually make it watery and actually take away the flavor.
Okay, cool. So I'm accidentally doing it right?
Did you say that you put your pork in raw and your meatballs?
No, so I do my meatballs I cook, I bake, meatballs I bake, then fry. Most people do one or the other. I do about 10 minutes in the oven, and I do about 5 minutes, I roll around the frying pan. So those are almost all the way cooked by the time they're ready. Sausage, I'm gonna just brown that. It's probably not all the way cooked by the time I put it in, but it's going in around 9 and I'm not eating till noon, so it's gonna be fine.
Right.
The one thing I put in completely raw is usually a beef short rib. But there's times that I'll use a pork chop. Sometimes,
That's what I do.
yeah, sometimes it's morning and I don't have a short rib, and I didn't go to the store and I'm in pajamas, and sometimes I can, go to Wegmans in pajamas, but then we talk on the radio and we make fun of people who go to Wegmans. I say, but that's me, I'm the guy that goes to Wegmans. And then other times I have a little dignity and I say, all right, I'm not gonna go, let's see what we have. And I go in the freezer and I find an old pork chop or something and throw that in there, yeah.
No, I used to always brown the meatballs, and so did my mother and my grandmother. But then we learned to put them in raw because then they're not hard on the outside. They're nice and soft, but they're still firm on the inside.
Yeah.
So we put it in raw, and they come out perfectly fine but nice and soft.
I think that's great. When you're making it yourself, there's no wrong answer, because if that's your way, then that's your way, and that's great. I kind of like that little crust that I put on it. I feel like there's some flavor to that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
It's your way is right to you, and my way is right to me. Now we're fun.
So do you want to come over Sunday to our house?
I would love to do that. I think it's warm enough, and I think it's good enough that we can try it. Yeah.
So when is it on?
Sorry.
When is it on?
Oh, the garlic. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the garlic. We missed the garlic.
Oh,
Wait a minute. Watch, the sauce will get better. I got two into it. All right, so now we have big chunks of garlic. Beautiful thing, we can save it. We're gonna go with the blender again.
who caught that? She deserves a bucket.
Oh yeah, you're right. In fact,
Yeah.
here you go.
You need some.
Our spicy chunky veg. All right. Let me get that in there. Sorry about that. So that should have went in like 20 seconds. Well, not with the onions. Probably like, how I had the onions, the peppers, and everything in there for a while. That would have been in there for a while. I should have put the garlic in like 20 to 30 seconds before I put in tomato paste. Oh, we have a celebrity in our ladies and gentlemen. So welcome.
I also failed to mention something. This is Mary Debbie's wedding anniversary.
says it.
10 years is a long
No,
time.
31 years with the same guy is a long time.
Hey, I gotta tell you, 31 years for me today, too.
Oh, yay.
1986.
Yes, yes. What time?
We got married at 3 in the afternoon. Oh my goodness, we were St. Charles and Greece.
We were in Ithaca.
Smells really good, Polly. What are you
Not
making?
bad, well, we just asked Girl.
He's making dinner.
I literally just like forgot.
The main ingredient.
So the other ones, you guys have had actual professionals up here? Right? All right, we're good, now we have Girl. All right, we'll give it like a minute.
Okay.
And then we'll-
How about other people sharing? All right, I've had Peter DeLucia's sauce. Excellent. How do you prepare your sauce?
I do roasted tomatoes. So I roast them in the oven and I do roasted garlic and roasted onions.
Awesome.
And then what I do is I put them all in a food processor to make it smooth.
Yeah, that's
And then
awesome.
I put them in with olive oil and spices and pour a cup of wine.
Awesome.
I do the red
Red wine.
wine. The red wine really adds a depth plus the roasted part of it. It's foolproof every time.
That's great, yeah.
It is wonderful.
I failed to mention I do also use wine, but I use it in me, not in
That's the garlic. I'll just mention to you all that it's not uncommon for Debbie and I at 7:37 like this to say, oh my
What's
God,
for dinner?
what's for dinner? And we'll say, grab a jar of Polly's sauce.
I did it the other night. Bring it home, and you did the other
He
night.
actually does make fantastic
I
sauce.
appreciate that.
Every now and then we'll tweak and add a little bit, but more often than not, it's just, whoo,
That is-
you're on, dude.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah. So a couple people heard you on the radio, by the way.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What made you decide to sell it commercially?
The honest to God truth, if I'm nothing, I'm too honest, all right? We're on the radio one day, it's a Monday, I had made sauce the day before, I bring in leftover sauce. Today was just me and I had a big pot of sauce, we couldn't bring it in. So I bring it in, we're in the commercial break, we come back on the air, and Lee says, bro, that's delicious. Now before that, I had always been openly Italian, you know, like I've been out in the closet as an Italian. and so I'm openly Italian and always talk about sauce and, you know, tradition and everything. So like the audience kind of already knew that was something I was into. What happened was he said, like, bro, you should do, he said something along the lines of like, bro, you should jar this stuff, bro, sell it at Wegmans. You know, like, right, that sounds so easy, I'll just do that, right? But really what happened was I got, remember exactly, 22, not 21, not 23, but 22 emails or texts from people saying like, dude, if you did that, I'd buy a jar. And literally I thought to myself, I was like, well, wait a minute. I mean, we just mentioned it like once for 2 seconds and 22 people were interested in buying a jar of sauce. Like, what if I mentioned it again? Would that mean 44 people would be interested? You know? And so I just, I honest to God went home and Googled it. And there is a place in Geneva called the Food Venture Center. And the Food Venture Center is affiliated with Cornell. And it is students who are working on their master's degrees in food science. And as part of their projects, they are actually approving what's called scheduled process. A scheduled process is just a fancy way of saying recipe. It's like an approved recipe for production. Is this right up your alley now?
I like this.
So I sent a couple of samples of sauce to the Food Venture Center, and basically all they were going to do was, I was going to pay them $75, and they were going to write me back and give me a scheduled process. And they wanted me to make a couple of tweaks. I think I had sent them one, I wanted to do one with Italian sausage in it, and I had sent them one with sausage that had a little bit more than 2% of sausage in it. Believe it or not, if it's more than 2%, it becomes a USDA thing. And so I had to, they wanted me to bring it under 2%, and then also they wanted me to give them a pH value, like what the pH balance was in my sauce. And I was not a good student and did not remember what that meant. And so after Googling what pH means, which is?
The acidity or the acidity.
And so they said, we need you to measure your pH every time you ever make sauce and make sure that it comes in under a 4.2. And apparently what that does is make sure that botulism could never occur at that point, right? So what they did was they told me my critical factors, and that is pH balance under a 4.2, and when we boil, we have to boil up to 195 degrees and leave it there for 6 minutes. Actually, while I have you,
Yeah.
why is it 195 and why is it for 6 minutes?
I don't know.
No. I've never quite known exactly why. Why is it 195 and why is it 6 minutes? I don't know. That's the rules. And so every time we make a batch of sauce, it goes to 195. It stays there for 6 minutes, and then the pH gets tested 24 hours later. And as long as the pH is good, then it gets released into the world. So, ready to we're ready to do a little sauce with garlic. There's Parmesan cheese in a couple of the recipes, not in this one, but yeah, there are in some.
I was gonna go back to your canned tomatoes. Did you ever remove the skins from them or no?
No, never took the skins or the seeds away. The only thing I took off was the stem.
Okay, you don't puree that, the canned tomatoes?
No, not.
You're just cooking it down?
Yep, just cooking it down. It goes in there, and it's just it's such a bad word to use, but it's fleshy. There's a lot of flesh in there. It's a terrible word to use when it's cooking, right? But it's what it is. It's so it's not pretty when it's in there. I actually love it. Sometimes I can eat that. In fact, when I can, I usually leave a little. It's almost like a nice tomato soup. It's really good. Yeah. So you guys are gonna try a little bit of this sauce.
And I wish I had bread. Kevin, you want to go home? I have 2 loaves at home.
Yes, ma'am.
How many tomatoes would you fill
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. Gosh, by the time it boils down, I've sort of lost track of how many, but I guess I can figure it out. I probably get, 18, for my fellow canners, about 18 jars per bushel, does that sound right? I think I usually end up around 18 jars a bushel. How many tomatoes are in a bushel depends on the size of the tomato again. So, I don't know. The farmer in the back?
I'm a grower.
Bill, by the way, Bill does not like tomatoes, but he likes sauce.
Well, you grow good ones, sir. Good job. So, to tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure exactly how many tomatoes are in each jar. Yeah, I know. That's terrible, right? The guy who's doing the thing should be like 79. There you go.
Do you do a hot bath to can those after?
I don't, and I know a lot of people do, but I don't. When I do my canning, I have a big, huge pot, as I mentioned, and that's all my tomatoes. I boiled that. That's 3 hours. That's basil, parsley, salt. Over here, I have another pot, boiling water. And then I have a third little pot of also boiling water. And in the one pot, I'm putting my mason jars in to the boiling water, and in the back, I'm putting my lids and my caps in that boiling water. Rolling my mason jar around once, grabbing it with some tongs, taking it out, being very careful not to burn myself. And yes, I've burned myself plenty of times. Most canners have. Yes, burned myself plenty of times. Taking that jar out, I'm putting it right here, and then I'm taking, right out of that boiling water, I'm taking boiling tomato and putting it right into that mason jar that was just with that boiling stuff. It's been sterilized, the word I was looking for. It's been sterilized, and then also the hot on hot too. If you didn't put it in the hot, you could actually risk breaking that jar. And Aunt who did that, and actually, she didn't leave it alone.
I do. Yeah, and then you waste all that sauce.
Yeah, but then it's also very dangerous because you've got boiling, and you could. I think my aunt, story had it, she actually kind of did it when she was up against her, like her chest and like burned. So I'm going to take the mason jar right out of the boiling water, put it there, put in my boiling tomatoes. Definitely need a funnel.
Probably good.
And then I'm going to take a cap and a twisty out of the back pot, and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to invert it very quickly, just to get it. And I'm going to put it over here, and then I'm going to listen for what? Pop. I heard it all. I turned it over real quick. I inverted for a second, and I put it over here, and then in a few minutes, I get that. Oh.
You don't use a canner.
I don't use a canner, no. All by hand. I learned from a 91-year-old Italian man, so there was no machinery. It was by hand. This is our seasonal sauce right now. This is a pumpkin sauce. Yeah, so this year we decided to do a pumpkin sauce. We do seasonals every few months. We come out with something. It's an idea that I borrowed from the beer industry. Beer, they're always putting out seasonals, and I'm a sucker for a good seasonal beer. So I said, well, let's do a sauce. Who does that, You notice one thing about our sauce line is that it's very Ben & Jerry's as opposed to traditional. Traditional sauces are, puttanesca and bolognese and marinara. You know, ours are spicy chunky veggie, Sunday sauce, pumpkin sauce, bright colors. It looks like a children's book. The little old man is grandpa. The little kid is me back when I was still cute. All this, so our sauces are designed to be like Ben and Jerry's. And one little cool fun fact is I actually had the opportunity to interview Ben Cohen. When he came to town, he was campaigning for Hillary Clinton back during that. And so he came to town, and the deal was, you can interview Ben Cohen for 10 minutes, you gotta give him a minute to talk about Hillary Clinton. So I was like, fine, I get 9 minutes to talk about Ben and Jerry's, but I stole some of that time to like ask him what he thought of stuff. But it was real fun talking to him because he faced a lot of the same objections that I would face when I go into stores. There's all the same objections are, we've already got a million sauces, your sauce is too expensive, all those same things. And Ben Cohen, he goes, same stuff we face, of course. Haagen-Dazs already existed, there was already a high-end ice cream out there, and it was too expensive. They want, you know, Ben and Jerry's was coming in at a high end at that time. And so that's when they went to the pint. They went to a pint, they were the same price as everyone else. They also were able to get a little bit more they were able to get more in, so they got more of like what they're calling a banner ad almost on the shelf or on the freezer in this case. And it was their breakthrough moment. So this one is vegetarian. It is vegetarian, it's not vegan, it's got cream in it.
Do you ever make white sauces?
White sauce like Alfredo or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I do at home. And our rosy sauce is half Alfredo. But making an Alfredo sauce in a commercial way is a little bit harder. You need something called a retort. A retort machine, and the only one that exists in Rochester is Ledestri, and I'm not that big. Ledestri is, you guys know, Ledestri is like a massive international business. I'm Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse. I'm not quite ready. But that's, yeah, I'm small. So maybe if I ever do get big enough to go to Ledestri, then I would definitely like to do an Alfredo sauce. Yeah, so.
It's really cool to tour.
Yeah, I've actually had toured it. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. I saw the Alfredo machine.
Do you ever eat carrots? Like my kid, I have that on the roasting of sauce.
Yeah.
Carrots in it. I tell my kids, oh, there's carrots in it? They're like,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I used to immerse them with carrots. I wondered if you ever did it.
Yes, actually I do. The Sunday sauce, which I think I gave you, is the blue one. Blue, and it's okay. So that sauce is, when you become the sauce guy, everyone wants to tell you what you're doing wrong, right? So that sauce is actually full of things that people kept telling me that I should do, things like that. So carrots, people said that all the time. They were like, you should have carrots in your sauce. People would say, you know, wine and cheese, and you know, these are things people said to me all the time. So I went like, fine, I'm gonna do one that just checks all the boxes. And that sauce, if you look at it, it's got carrots in it, it's got red wine in it, it's got Parmesan cheese in it, you know, it's got all the things. It's got Italian sausage and ground beef, it's got like, you know, meat, it's gotta have all the meat in the world, right? That's what that Sunday sauce is like, I call it listener suggestion sauce. Suggestion box sauce. I wanna go with pumpkin sauce, I don't know how to do it though, what should I do?
My daughter cooked carrots.
Well, yeah, think about it. All right. That's too easy. I was going to say, what occasion are we celebrating?
Okay. Carolyn, do they know what you did this
What was your
afternoon?
inspiration for?
No, they don't.
I have the question.
Oh. Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Pretty special.
I like it. She wants to know who thinks I'm the most handsome. And she's wondering if you think I'm more handsome or she does. Who's been a CSA member? Yeah. How does it, we do like a wedding dance, right? So we'll start with 1 year. Okay, if you've been a CSA member for 1 year, raise your hand. So you all have, right? Because you're all here. You've all been a CSA member for a year. No, raise your hand. You've been here for a year. Keep your hand up. Sorry, keep your hand up. It's like the wedding dance. Keep your hand up if you've been a CSA member for 2 years, but if you haven't, put your hand up. 3 years. 4 years. 5 years. 6 years.
1, 2, 3, 4. We need 4 during the class.
Oh, you're
next question.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be here for 7 years?
Who's ready to sign up right now?
Still, they're all 4 of them. I'll get more sauce for this.
We do have a list of everyone who hasn't put their deposit in yet, so you can be questioned.
That's why Kevin and I are here.
The pumpkin tip. All right. So everyone, so I'll get one. Who wants the pumpkin? I mean, there could be more than one pumpkin.
We're selling pumpkin now too.
Yeah. Who was second?
3 jars, Cal. 3
You
more
want to
jars.
do pumpkin? She has one. There would be more pumpkin. She has some. Okay. So if you've been here for 6 years, make sure that you get sauce. You get 3. Any other questions?
Any other hints or tips from members who have done this? Like canned tomatoes? Maybe freeze tomatoes? That's a good question.
Yeah.
They break down.
I've actually never frozen.
I
I'm not just a freeze food for that. Yeah, it's good for that. Put them in the freezer, and that's why I think I can put them on top of the salad bag.
So we're gonna repeat that. So this side here. So mom used to freeze tomatoes on a cookie hour.
Put them on a cookie sheet, put them in the freezer, then maybe 1 day. Then that's like I take 2 Christmas, take what they want out, put it on top of the salad, and then you cross it, they take it off.
So the frozen tomatoes on top of, by Christmas time, those wedges of tomatoes, put them on top of the salad, and they're just like fresh as can be. So interesting. Good one. So raise your hand, our 6-year members that need sauce. Thank you. Well, Polly, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next door. It's awesome. I've got the bread and all that good stuff, so thank you.
Okay. May I have